Good evening, DFS Jaggers. Welcome to the first official fantasy football podcast of the year with the Nickel City Mafia crew. It is your host, Riku Mukherjee, with my co-host, Chris Caldwell. We're here to discuss fantasy football rookies that can impact your fantasy year this year. Chris, how you doing, man?
I'm good. Yeah. So, NFL drafts, far in the past by now. So I know people are going to start doing fantasy football drafts. And for all the casual fans out there, rookies are going to be someone you're not totally familiar with yet. So that's why we're here. We're going to get you ready for your drafts and tell you about all these new rookies that you should be drafting.
Yeah. So I know it's been a little while, so like you said, since the draft, but we've gained a little bit more information about these rookies over the past few months. So I think this is a good time to do this show. Before we get started, we do have a sponsor for the show. The company's name is Auto, spelled O-R-T-O, and they have a little commercial for us, and then we're going to talk about a little giveaway that they're doing for us. Go ahead, Mike, roll the clip.
40% of the cars on the road hold a hidden history. With the Auto app, you simply photograph any car, and using our AI license plate recognition technology, you'll instantly have accident, sales, and owner data from multiple sources at your fingertips. If you work in the car industry or are simply buying a used car, use Auto to get the full picture. Search Auto, spelled O-R-T-O, on the App Store.
All right, we're back, and thank you for Auto for sponsoring the show. They're a great company. They have over 1 million downloads for the app. So if you're interested in them, please download the app. They are actually sponsoring a nice little giveaway for our fans out there. The giveaway is for 2 tickets to the Monday night game between the Bills and the Titans on September, I believe 14th or 19th, one of those 2 dates. I keep getting those dates mixed up, but the Monday night game between the Bills and the Titans, they're giving away 2 tickets to that game. If you're a Bills fan or a Titans fan and want to enter in the draw, or if you just live near Buffalo or want to go to that game, it's very easy to enter the draw. The first thing you have to do is you have to make sure you are subscribed to Nickel City Mafia. So just click on the little subscribe button right below me on the YouTube channel, which will subscribe you to the channel. And then all you have to do is leave a comment on the video. You can say anything you want, anything about fantasy football. Who's your favorite fantasy football pick of the year? Who's your sleeper of the year? Whatever you want to do, just make it related to fantasy football. Leave a comment, and that will enter you in a draw to win 2 tickets to the Bills Titans Monday night game. So pretty cool giveaway there. And if you also want to chat with us during the week, or if you have any questions about fantasy football, please join our Discord channel. We just started it. The link to join the Discord channel is in the description of the video. So if you join that, me and Chris are in there all the time. If you have any questions about fantasy football, just join the fantasy football thread, part of Nickel City Mafia server, and ask us questions, tag us. We will be there to answer the questions. If you have any Bills related stuff you want to talk about, any golf stuff you want to really talk about, we're all talking about it in there. So join our Discord. Like I said, the link is in the description. The last thing is, make sure when you guys subscribe to Nickel City Mafia that your subscription is public. So Mike behind the wall knows who you are, so that if you're entered in the draw, we know how to reach out to you. If you are unsure how to make your subscription public, there's also a video in the description. There's a link in the description that tells you how to make your subscription public. So please subscribe to our channel, like, comment, subscribe, do all the good stuff, enter in the draw, and you could win 2 tickets to a football game. So that sounds pretty exciting, right, Chris?
Yes, sir. And the Discord is free, so no cost for the Discord. Hope to see you in there chatting with us.
Yep, that is correct. So, so like we talked about at the top of the show, today we're going to be talking about rookies that have been drafted into the league and who we think are going to have the biggest impact fantasy wise. Obviously, some of these are going to be busts. Obviously, some of these are going to blow up. We don't know who's going to go where, but we're going to try to lead you in the correct direction on who to draft and who we think are the best players this year that could possibly be a sleeper and win you a league. Who knows? But before we get started, Chris, do you have any thoughts in general about the rookie class. I have a couple takes on that, but I'll let you talk about like just in general, like the rookie class. What did you think of the draft? Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think in general, just the amongst the fantasy community, it's kind of a down class. It's easy to be down though when everyone's so big on the 2023 class, and there's a lot of people are saying 7, 8, 9, surefire can't miss prospects in the 2023 class. I think people are already excited about that, but I don't want to look past this class because I think there are a few diamonds in the rough in this class. But interested to hear your take too.
Yeah. Before I go to that, I forgot to say along with the 2 tickets to the Bills Titans game, they're also giving away $100 Visa gift card. So 2 tickets and $100, and all you have to do is subscribe to our channel and leave a comment. Sounds pretty easy. So please do that. Yeah, I agree, man. This is a pretty down year. There's no surefire. I don't think there's any like surefire like studs. We could say there's obviously some great players that were drafted, but I can make a case for and against like any rookie this year that could have a fantasy impact, and that's kind of what we're going to do today. But yeah, overall, I thought the draft was exciting. Our Ravens, I think, had a good draft. They obviously traded away Marquise Brown, and they got 2 first-round picks this year, which they used to get a safety and a center. So building that kind of depth on our team seemed pretty good. But a lot of teams had some good drafts. And yeah, I mean, let's get into it. We're going to first talk about quarterbacks, and then we're going to get into wide receivers, running backs, and then tight ends, or maybe running back second. I'm not sure, but we're going to talk about quarterbacks first. So we're going to start off with our man, Pittsburgh Steelers, Kenny Pickett, drafted out of the University of Pittsburgh. He was the only quarterback taken in the first round of the draft, right? Is that right? Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, just to give the people a little bit of, about the slides, what we're going to do on here is put what order that the player was drafted in the NFL draft, and then how that compares to their current draft position in dynasty ranks. So basically how the NFL views them versus how fantasy players are viewing it. And we'll kind of walk through the differences there, maybe why that's going on and stuff like that. So yeah, quarterbacks, we can probably fly through this pretty quick, man. If you end up with a rookie quarterback on your team at any given point this year, it's probably not looking too good. We'll start off with Kenny Pickett. Signs are right now that he's not going to be the starter to start the year. I don't think many people are too surprised with that. They have Mitchell Trubisky in there. He's a veteran. He'll get the first crack at it, But yeah, we'll see. But again, for those that don't keep up with it too much, there's no rookie quarterbacks this year you're going to be dying to get. What do you think about Kenny Pickett?
I mean, I liked him in college. I thought he was good as a college quarterback. I'm just not sure how his game's going to translate to the NFL. Obviously, he's going into a great system, a great franchise in the Steelers, and he's obviously was drafted to be, I guess, like sort of the heir apparent to Ben Roethlisberger, who retired this past year, and it's kind of like a stopgap year kind of for the Steelers because they have good weapons and they have they have Najee Harris and great receivers and a great defense, but they're missing the quarterback position now. Will Kenny Pickett turn into a Justin Herbert like quarterback and lead the Steelers to the playoffs? I don't know. I don't think so. I just don't see the skills that he possesses translating to the NFL that well. I don't know. They might be able to coach him up there. We'll see. But I think for right now, they're obviously going to start Mitchell Trubisky. I don't like you can see in our slide here, he's going at ADP pick number 80, which is round 7. Obviously, you're not going to be drafting Kenny Pickett to be your QB1 on your fantasy leagues, but are you comfortable drafting him as a backup quarterback or as a QB2 for your league this year, or are you just gonna have to wait until he shows any sort of signs of putting up any stats before you take a stab at him?
So I don't think you're drafting Kenny Pickett at all in 1 QB leagues. even in dynasty leagues. So yeah, this is average draft pick in dynasty leagues. So in 1 QB leagues, he's a no for me. And honestly, even in super flex formats when you can start 2 QBs, I wouldn't want him as my number 2. Number 1, you don't know if he's going to start to begin the year. So I think if you wanted to take a flyer and have him as your QB3, like for example, say your first 2 QBs have late buys, like bye week 13 and 14. Well, by the time you get to their buys, Kenny Pickett could be, playing in the NFL. So, yeah, that's probably the only situation where I'd feel comfortable with him.
Yeah, that's the only thing I could really see in two QB super flex leagues. You could possibly take a flyer on him, as your third quarterback, like you said, for late buys. But even then, you're taking a big risk, and you're most likely going to have injuries on your team, and at some point, you're probably going to have to draft him. So my guess is probably you're going to want to take a stab on somebody else that's actually a viable starter in the league as your QB3 over Kenny Pickett. But if he, what do you think is going to happen if the Steelers come out? I mean, Steelers are a very respected franchise, a very, their fans are hardcore. Like, what do you think is going to happen if the Steelers come out and Mitchell Trubisky, like awful Mitchell Trubisky, and they start off like 1-4 or like 1-5 or something like that? They're going to be calling for his head, and I mean, it's possible. I mean, I could see a path where Kenny Pickett could be making his first start by like week 5, week 6. What do you think?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Plus, with Pickett, he's an old prospect, right? He was, I believe, a 5th-year senior when he graduated. He's 23 years old already. He's hometown kid, went to the University of Pittsburgh. So I think there's a lot of things actually in his favor to get on the field quickly. So, yeah, I wouldn't put it past him putting him in. But again, in a 1 QB league, he's far off our radar, and on 2 QB leagues, he's probably barely on it. I think there's actually another rookie QB that I'd rather draft this year than Kenny Pickett.
All right, so let's move on from Kenny Pickett to the next guy. Malik Willis was drafted by the Titans. I believe in the second round, 86th overall, I believe. And this was the biggest surprise in the draft for me, man. I thought he had the chance of going number 1 overall, possibly in the top 5 for sure. The fact that he slipped all the way down, past the first round, past the second round, and now is in a spot where he's not even like a starter for the team. Obviously, the Titans are starting Tannehill, and Malik Willis was drafted as the heir apparent or the backup or whatever. But this was surprising for me, man. There was a lot of talk about him coming into the league, making an impact. He has, the great arm strength. He has mobility. Like I was seeing some places making comparisons to like Kyler Murray, to Lamar Jackson, stuff like that. He's obviously not that athlete, and the teams actually. I mean, I don't know if this was smart, but it seems like the teams a lot of teams passed on him. Like every single team passed on him round after round, and the Titans, after lots of debate in their war room, they said this was a value too good to be passed up that late in the draft, and they took him, a talent that could be really good in the NFL in the future. I doubt he's going to get any starter snaps this year unless Tannehill gets hurt, but yeah, man, this was a big shocker for me during draft day. What do you think?
Yeah, he's Malik Willis is undraftable, and in just for the rest of the show, because we'll just talk about just 2022 football, not dynasty. Obviously, he's a decent dynasty asset because Tannehill is only tied to the Titans for 1 more season, so he's actually not a bad pickup in a dynasty league, but. For this year, I think the Titans have already come out and said it. There's no QB controversy whatsoever. And, I don't think they envision Malik Willis playing this year. It's not a bad landing spot for him, though, because Tannehill has 1 year left on his deal. The Titans want to run the ball, and he needs a year to develop anyway, if not 2. So, yeah, I mean, it could have been a worse landing spot. I'm shocked. I cannot believe he made it out of the first round of the draft. Like the Steelers were all over him. They were basically must have been some sort of smokescreen because Tomlin was oozing over this guy. I thought there was no way that he would make it past the Steelers pick. So We all got thrown for a loop. But yeah, in 2022 fantasy football, yep, unless Tannehill is out for the year, you can't pick this guy up.
Yeah, I actually thought the Steelers were talking about potentially trading up in the draft to get him like into the top 10. And then not only did they not take him with their first round selection, they took Kenny Pickett. Nobody took him. Like there were spots where I thought he would have been a great fit. Could have potentially come in and start. Seattle starting on day one, Carolina, places like that where like people they were QB hungry and they could use a potential talent like this. But yeah, man, he dropped way down. Now he's in a spot where he's a backup. But yeah, he's a good dynasty pickup because he's obviously not going to benefit you this year. But to have him on your squad and stash him for a year, not a bad idea. But yeah, you're right, undraftable this year in regular redraft leagues and stuff like that. So it's just one of those situations where it's a good talent that unless something happens with Tannehill, which you can't really bank on. But the Titans are a good squad, and he could potentially fill in if Tannehill gets hurt, which is a possibility. He's old and he likes to run, and he could take a big hit, couple big hits, and they'll have to bring Malik Willis into play. But then again, even if he does come in, you have Derrick Henry, you have a great offensive line. You're gonna most of the time you're probably just gonna hand the ball off to Derrick Henry. They're probably not gonna ask him to throw too much in this league, so he's not really fantasy viable. And yeah, I just wouldn't waste a late round sleeper on him. Any other thoughts on Malik?
Nah, off the radar.
All right, we got a comment in our chat here. It says Charles says Willis isn't very accurate, which doesn't translate to the NFL. Yeah, well, that's something that can be fixed. That's something that can be coached up. Lamar Jackson's not really an accurate quarterback either, but he was an MVP in the league. But his skill set's a little bit different, so we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah, when you have the cheat code with the legs like Lamar and Jalen Hurts and Trey Lance and these types, it's kind of the way the NFL is moving. So I think basically what you're seeing is coaches want elite level athletes. And, even if you're only a 60th percentile thrower, right, that's way good enough. I mean, Jalen Hurts can't throw whatsoever, and he's a decent quarterback. So
yeah,
you don't have to be Tom Brady if you can run like Malik Willis, because Tom Brady cannot run like Malik Willis.
Yeah, and the other thing is that Malik Willis never saw like NFL like competition in college. He obviously played at a small school in Liberty, so they probably want to give him the clipboard for a year, let him run with the twos in practice and stuff like that, and then kind of see how it comes out for them next year, where they're going to probably not going to re-sign Brian Tannehill, and they're probably going to give the reins over to Malik Willis. So for next year, we'll talk about it as far as possibly being someone that's draft viable, but this year, definitely not. So let's move on to our next guy, Matt Corral. So I am actually a Matt Corral fan. I liked him in college. I think he could have the chance to be a good quarterback in the NFL. So he obviously got drafted by the Panthers out of Ole Miss, and then after they drafted him, they went and traded for Baker Mayfield. So now they have three quarterbacks in that quarterback room with Baker Mayfield, Matt Corral, and Sam Darnold. I'm assuming Baker Mayfield is going to be QB1 opening day. That's my assumption here. And then Matt Corral and Sam Darnold are going to be battling it out for QB2. What do you think? Do you think the Panthers are going to carry three quarterbacks this year? Probably, right?
Yeah, you almost have to, unless Darnold's a cut. I mean, you just traded for Baker, and Corral you spent a third round pick on. So either Darnold's a cut or you carry three. Yeah.
Matt Corral was a machine in college, man. The Ole Miss offense, I don't know if it was just the offense that was designed around him, but that offense scored like 50, 60 points, like anything, like every game. And the Lane Kiffin was one of those guys in college that was able to use Matt Corral's skill set to the best of his ability. And this guy was just like literally, he won me so many bets in college this past year where they just like, even at games where they were down, like they would just like somehow just string together like 3 touchdowns in a row. And he was a machine, man. He threw a lot of touchdowns. He was in a run and gun kind of offense. Once again, I don't really know how the run and gun offense translates to the NFL. We'll see, but what do you think his fantasy prospects are moving forward?
Yeah, in 2022, even with the bleak outlook in the Carolina QB room, I don't think he's remotely draftable. And even if he kind of gets a shot with a Baker injury and whatnot, this team's just not good. So I don't know. I mean, he's probably the fourth ranked rookie QB for me. I mean, he's pretty down there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't really have much else to say about Matt Corral. We'll move on to our next guy. Desmond Ridder obviously is coming into a spot where he's drafted by the Falcons. The Falcons signed Marcus Mariota to be their QB1 this offseason. This is the one situation beyond Kenny Pickett where I think that we could have a battle for QB1 snaps here. I think it's a situation where Marcus Mariota has seen the field plenty as a starter in his NFL career, and he has failed as a Titan. He was a backup for the Raiders, where they would just kind of bring him in and use a run option, play every once in a while, but he didn't really do much there. But this is a situation where Desmond Ridder played at a small school in Cincinnati, but Cincinnati was amazing. They made the national semifinals last year. Yeah, they were so good. So he's coming into a spot where, I don't think he's going to get the first crack at it, because I think Marcus Mariota is the proven veteran QB in that locker room. But
proven saying a lot.
Well, yeah, proven saying a lot, but someone who's actually seen the NFL field and put up stats in the NFL. So what do you think about Desmond Ridder here? Do you think his game is translatable to the NFL? He's a pretty small guy. I mean, he's 6'1", but I'm not sure, man. He played at, like I said, a small school in Cincinnati where their day-to-day competition wasn't that great, and then they make the national semifinals and they get smoked by a team like Alabama and or Georgia or whoever they ended up playing. It's one of those situations where it's are they good enough? Good enough program that we just don't care. Is it a player that can translate to the NFL? And do you think he's going to see snaps this year? Because I think he is.
Yeah, I mean, he's my favorite rookie QB in terms of 2022, just because, I mean, I think Marcus Mariota is going to cede the job faster than Mitchell Trubisky might. And also, I think Pittsburgh's a more stable organization than the Falcons are as well. So I think they're more willing to kind of stick by their guy for a little while. I mean, everything I've read about Mariota is they're saying coach speak, he's our guy for now. That's how we're going to do this, right? They're saying all the right things, but I mean, are we really surprised if Marcus Mariota can only hold a job 2 or 3 weeks? I mean,
yeah.
And Ritter's just a winner, man. I mean, he did it in college, from all reports, he's like an outstanding teammate and locker room guy. And, that team's already playing for the future, right? So in my mind, it's why do you want to grind out 3, 4, 5 wins with a veteran in Mariota if you think Ridder might be your guy? I think there's 100% chance he's on the field this year because the Falcons are going to be terrible. So they are going to need to know whether they're drafting a QB, in the top 5 in next year's draft. So for that reason alone, I think that Ridder is more likely to see the field than Pickett is. We already know Pickett is their guy for next year and the year after that, right? So
the one thing I do like about Desmond Ridder is that he threw against Sauce Gardner every day in practice, who I think is probably the best cornerback to come out of this draft, and possibly the best player overall to come out of this draft. So I think throwing against NFL competition like that in college is important, even though they didn't play against NFL caliber teams. So yeah, we'll see. Are you taking a flyer on him as a QB3 in 2 QB leagues?
I actually kind of dig it more than Pickett. I mean, that's my own personal stance. I know Pickett's getting drafted higher, but I like the upside. Just Ridder has the mobility. Pickett's definitely in the better offense and has more weapons, but I don't know. I think Ridder has a better chance of seeing the field, and he has that rushing floor that we all love.
So you're saying in the last round of redraft 2 QB leagues, if you have Pickett and Ridder on the board, you're taking Ridder over Pickett?
I guess I am.
All right, you heard it here first. Ritter is going to be your QB first QB fantasy of the league this year. Any other QBs you want to talk about, or is that or those the four main guys that you wanted to talk about?
That's it, man. I mean, it's a really weak class. Sam Howell is but they've already said on Washington he's the third string quarterback, and so he's completely off the radar. He's barely even on the radar for Dynasty, so we don't need to talk about him at all.
What about Carson Strong for Philadelphia? Anything?
He went undrafted, right?
Yeah, but he's an Eagle, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think he was an undrafted free agent, if I remember correctly.
So he might not even make the team. So yeah, no one else to really talk about when it comes to QB. So we're going to move on to the really fun stuff here for players that you can actually draft. We're going to go on to running backs here. Breece Hall, he's going, most dynasty rookie drafts, he's going number 1 overall. He's coming into a spot in New York where there's carries to be handed around there with Michael Carter and him, kind of fighting for this running back 1 spot. I like him, man. I think he's pretty good. I see some stuff from him in college that I think translates well to the NFL. He was drafted. He wasn't a first round draft pick this year, right? He was a second round draft pick, right?
Top of the second, I believe.
Top of the second. So yeah, so no first round running backs this year went in the NFL draft. So he was the first one off the board, I believe. And he lands in a spot where he could definitely contribute fantasy wise. So talk to me about Breece Hall.
Yeah, man. A lot to love here. I mean, the funny thing is with him is his, the comp that was used the most for him was David Montgomery, and they went to the same school and they kind of play similar, but Breece Hall is better in every aspect of the game than David Montgomery. So if you kind of think about it that way, both on bad offenses, but Breece Hall's he's a juiced up David Montgomery, and he's in a way better system. The 49ers system, coming over to the New York Jets with their new coach there. So I think he's going to be, they're not going to sling it all around the field with Zach Wilson. We know that. And I think that Michael Carter takes a bit of a backseat. Michael Carter was not a highly touted prospect. I believe he was a 4th round draft pick in the NFL draft last year. So he had a few decent games when he was kind of thrust into action. He's good at catching the ball. But his quarterbacks were just nonstop checking it down. And I just don't know that that's, repeatable over and over. So Breece Hall is your stereotypical workhorse. He's kind of the closest thing to a Saquon Barkley type that we've seen since Saquon Barkley. So, yeah, I mean, absolutely love him. I think in 2022 drafts, he's probably going somewhere around the RB15 range, mid-level RB2, but I think his upside is way better than that. Should the Jets offense take a step forward, which I really think they will this year.
So if you were to let's take let's forget about their other running backs. Who do they have? Tevin Coleman and Ty Johnson. Let's forget about them for a second. If we would just have 100% share between Breece Hall and Michael Carter this upcoming year, what do you think the split is? Do you think it's 65-35 Breece Hall? Do you think it's closer to 50-50? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's probably at least 65-35, honestly. Breece Hall's his size, he can handle 3 downs, no problem at all. And like I said, Michael Carter, fun little player. He just doesn't.
That really upsets me, man. I really liked Michael Carter. He was a stud at times last year.
He really was. I mean, there was a couple games, if I'm remembering correctly, he had like 8, 9, 10 catches, maybe more. But yeah, their quarterback, when you're playing Joe Flacco and Mike White, you're going to get a lot of checkdowns. So I don't know if that was Michael Carter getting the ball because he's so good that he demanded, the ball, and they just had to get it to him, or they just didn't want to throw it downfield. I think this is the Breece Hall show, man. I don't think that you draft him at the top of the second and cede a whole lot of carries to Michael Carter, but we'll see.
Okay.
But again, it's like also people are so scared of timeshares, and they're saying, "Oh, I need that feature back." Guess how many there is in the league?
There's a lot. There's a lot of timeshares.
No, I'm saying like feature backs. What
Yeah,
is there
not,
like
yeah,
5?
yeah. There's
You
not
have
many.
you have you have Derrick Henry. I'm sure I'm going to forget one. You have Derrick Henry, Najee Harris, Dalvin Cook.
Probably Christian McCaffrey when he's on the field.
Yeah, Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, I guess.
That's about it.
There's less than 10 backs out of 32 teams that literally demand 75% of the work. So
Yeah.
nowadays, the NFL is different. If you get 65% of the touches, you are literally the guy. So it's like there's not many cases anymore where running backs get 28, 30 carries and the next guy gets 4, right? So it just doesn't happen anymore. A good call, Mike, on Jonathan Taylor. Yeah, he's close.
You could probably throw Joe Mixon into that pile too, because he gets a lot of the carries. But yeah, you're right, man. So if you're drafting Breece Hall, are you drafting him as a flex player with potential RB2 upside, or are you drafting him as an RB2 with potential RB1 upside?
I'd say RB2 I think that's where he's going to land. I mean, I think if he's your flex player or like your RB3, I think you're in an outstanding position, right? Because, he has that upside to be, top 7, 8 running back, in my opinion. But I think the safer place to project him is somewhere between like 15 and 20.
All right, let's move on from Breece Hall to our next running back here. We're going to talk about Mr. Kenneth Walker III from Michigan State, I believe, and he was drafted to the Seattle Seahawks. Pretty good spot for Kenneth Walker to be coming into the league, especially now with Chris Carson announcing his retirement a few weeks ago. This spot is a situation where the Seahawks are going to run the ball a lot because they don't have a quarterback. And we already know Pete Carroll likes to run the ball a lot. So I think it's just a battle between him and Rashad Penny. Rashad Penny showed a lot of flashes. He won a lot of people some leagues last year in fantasy, but he's injury prone. And if he tweaks something or if he gets hurt in training camp or something, Kenneth Walker is going to be thrust into a spot where he's going to get a bulk of the carries. He's going to get a lot of fantasy points. So I really like Kenneth Walker from a redraft league kind of draft situation. I don't know if I would take him as high as he's going as his ADP. I would probably wait to see if he dropped a little bit. But yeah, what are your thoughts on Kenneth Walker? I think he's in a good spot.
So I just have a question for you. So in a 1-year league, redraft league, who would you draft, Penny or Walker, straight up?
I would probably draft Rashad Penny over Kenneth Walker. I think he's still the horse on that team.
Yeah, like you said, the way he finished the year last year was incredible. I believe it was like the last 4 or 5 weeks of the year he was the number 2 running back in fantasy. So hard to argue with that production. It just took him 4 years to do it. But the guy was.
Well, I mean, he spent like 2 years on like IR, like just hurt all the time.
I know. Yeah, the thing with Kenneth Walker is you would almost have to guess that Penny's going to get the first crack at it until he's not healthy. So to spend this high of a pick on Walker, and you might not. So if Penny's playing, I don't even know. We don't know yet if you can even play Kenneth Walker. I mean, maybe like a flex play, but we're not really sure how he's going to be used. So I think there's a lot of risk that comes with him. But like, as you mentioned, a ton of upside because if and when Penny goes down and the only other person in his backfield is DJ Dallas, I mean, Kenneth Walker is going to get 20 touches a game. So
and he comes from a program in Michigan State where they run a pro style like offense. So I think he's going to translate to the NFL really well just because of the program that he's coming from. And he produced like hell last year, man. The Michigan State backfield was amazing. So I like it. I like him. I like him as a if you get him as a flex play possibly this year. You may not be able to start him. Like if you're drafting him to be your flex, you may not be able to start him for the first like few weeks. But I think by like weeks 3 or 4, he's going to start getting a bulk of time on the field because he's going to show out and he could be competing for that RB1 spot against Rashad Penny, even if Penny's healthy.
Yeah, let's so we already compared him against Penny. Who else do you think is kind of in that range? Let's do like
Mm,
a this or that.
okay, let me see what we got here. Where is he going right now? Let's see. Walker. So it looks like he's on Fantasy Pros. He's RB 17. So the names around him. Yeah, he's a tier 3 running back right now. I think he got bumped up because of Carson's retirement. So the running backs in front of him are Cam Akers, Travis Etienne, J.K. Dobbins, and the guys behind him are Antonio Gibson, Aaron Jones, and David Montgomery.
Is that redraft or dynasty? It's got to be a dynasty ADP.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I might have clicked I might have clicked dynasty here. What's his redraft league?
Yeah, I'm looking at his redraft ADP, and he's numbered third RB 30.
Oh yeah. This is dynasty. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know, man. That's a little rich. Okay, so I'll throw a couple at you and let me know what you think.
Okay.
So Kenneth Walker or Chase Edmonds?
Kenneth Walker.
Oh, I love Chase Edmonds this year. Okay. Kenneth Walker or Damian Harris?
Damian Harris, I think.
Okay. That's Kenneth Walker, Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
I still think Clyde Edwards-Helaire has a chance to have a good season.
Yeah, I mean, you got to stick with that offense and give him one more try, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay, cool. Well, I think we've beat him to death. The takeaway on him is he's a really nice player that you would like on your bench to start the year. And the second Penny goes down, it's wheels up.
Yeah,
and it's going to be too late to get him. You cannot wait for the Penny injury. You have to put him away. Yeah.
All right, let's move on. We got a lot of these names to go through. Next name to you Bills fans out there, which is pretty exciting, is James Cook, drafted out of the University of Georgia, national champions. He comes into a spot where he is going to be competing with Devin Singletary for their RB1 slot, it looks like, unless the Bills end up doing something with Singletary, which I don't know if they will, if they trade him, cut him, but it looks like as of right now, he's fighting for that RB1 spot in Buffalo. I know this is a Bills channel, and I know you guys don't like to hear it, but I'm always down on Bills running backs. Your best running back is Josh Allen, in my opinion. He takes away a lot of goal line carries. He takes away a lot of rushing upside for those running backs. I understand the talent is there. He's not Dalvin Cook. He is not his older brother. His older brother is way better than him. But he comes into a spot where, it's a high-powered offense, and if he is able to produce, he could put up some fantasy numbers.
Yeah, man. This is one of the, going into the draft, James Cook was one of my favorite rookies of the year. And I absolutely love watching him play. He is like an absolute electric player. But I know it's a great offense. It's just not a good landing spot for fantasy, like you said. I have a stat. Since Josh Allen entered the league, he has more rushing touchdowns than every other Bills running back combined.
Yeah.
In that time period. So right. That is, it's not, I'm not being a hater. I'm just saying it's true. Josh Allen, the way that he plays, you notice a lot of mobile quarterbacks don't really use their running back and dump it down because their third read is their own legs, right? So, yeah, I mean, I think he's a super exciting player. I think he's going to have 2 or 3 touchdowns longer than 40 or 50 yards this year. I don't think he's a weekly starter that you can rely on if Singletary is healthy, because I think they learned at the end of last year, they really like him. He has some juice left. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know where he's going. Let me look to see who he's being drafted around, and we can kind of do a this or that. But while I look that up, why don't you tell me what you think about him?
Yeah, man. I kind of echo your sentiment here. I get what you're saying, Jake. I know you guys love him out there in Buffalo. He's the next OJ Simpson that for you guys out there. But I don't know, man. I try my best to be unbiased here in this situation, but I don't know. I just can't get to Bills running backs while Josh Allen is playing. He just for fantasy purposes, he might be a good football player. He might be good for the team in sense that it will help you win games, but just from a fantasy perspective, it's tough for me.
I agree. I'm reading Jake's comment. He said he looks incredible, dropped 10 pounds. I would have felt way better if that said added 10 pounds.
Yeah, right.
5'11", 199 is not a very stout frame. I mean, I think the way, like, and you just nailed it, Rick. He's going to be a better NFL player than he is a fantasy player. I think he's going to be utilized in the slot. He's going to be utilized on, like jet sweeps. I think he's going to be, maybe even utilize him in the return game. I'm not sure, but they want to get this guy the ball in space. I think his ceiling and who Buffalo fans want him to be is like that Alvin Kamara type, right?
Right.
But the thing is, Alvin Kamara's got 20 pounds on him, and that was before he lost 10 pounds. So I hate to say it, but height and weight mean a lot for NFL running backs and the pounding that they take, with these 300-pound, 350-pound guys falling on them. So you have to have the weight and the body mass to withstand that. And the way his build is, I think he's a 7 to 10 touch a game guy, which is great for that offense. He's going to make explosive plays. I just don't want to rely on that for my fantasy team.
So I think a good comparison for him, and let me ask you this question. Let's just take Devin Singletary out of the picture. Let's say Devin Singletary gets hurt or he gets cut or traded or something like that, and James Cook is the RB1 in Buffalo. Who do you think is a better fantasy prospect this year, James Cook or Travis Etienne in Jacksonville?
Ooh, don't ask me that question. I'm a huge Etienne fan. I think he's primed to go off this year. Yeah, I mean, Etienne's just a way bigger back. I think he's can handle a 3-down roll. James Cook cannot handle a 3-down roll. It's not even a question to ask. So I think that they're going to find his niche because they're going to need him on the field. They're going to need him in space making plays. Again, I think he's going to be on a per touch basis. I think he's going to be absolutely amazing, but I don't want to put someone in my lineup for now until we see how they game plan around him. That's going to get, only 8 to 10 touches a game. It's just not worth it.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so we beat the James Cook horse to death here. So let's move on. Next guy we're going to talk about is Rachaad White, drafted to the Tampa Bay Bucks out of Arizona State. He comes into a spot where he has to compete with Fat Lenny, as we call him, for the RB1 spot. Lenny Fournette coming in way overweight in camp, but I don't know, man. I even though Leonard Fournette's like the guy there, I could see Rachaad White eating into his workload this year. This guy is was pretty dynamic in college. He's obviously in a spot where he has a quarterback like Tom Brady who could utilize his skills. I think he's a good pass catcher, possibly out of the backfield and stuff like that. So what are your thoughts on Rachaad White? He is pretty old, though. He's 23. I think he's almost 24 potentially. So I don't know about that. But I mean, he has some good tape from college. I think he's coming into an all right spot where Leonard Fournette's not like – he's like the guy, but he's not like the guy. Like he could easily be replaced any week. But it looks like he's going to be taking the Ronald Jones role from last year. So what do you think?
Yeah, I like players like Rachaad White because I hate to harp on James Cook, but no matter what happens ahead of James Cook with the, whoever they start at running back, Singletary or Moss or Duke Johnson, whoever the heck they have, if one of them were to go down, James Cook's role, what does it change by 10%, 20%? If Leonard Fournette goes down or misses time for any reason, or he falls out of favor with Brady, whatever may happen. I know it's not likely because he's had 2 great years with Brady, but Rashad White has that 3-down ability. He's an excellent pass catcher. He's a good pass protector, which we know Tom Brady loves. He's a converted linebacker. That's why he's so old. Rick is he used to play linebacker in college,
Okay.
and he didn't switch to running back until I believe his junior year, halfway through his junior year, something like that.
Okay.
So yeah, he's new at the craft, but incredible athlete. Great hands. So I like to have players, and you're not drafting Rashad White to want to play him. You're drafting him I harped on this last year. If you guys have watched the channel before, your bench in fantasy football needs to have absolute dynamite grenades on it. Like, it does you no good to have a wide receiver on your bench who gets 10, 11, 12 points every game. You need people on your bench that if their situation were to change, they immediately get shoved into, top 10, top 15 at their position. It usually happens more with running backs, right? Like, look at the Tony Pollards of the world. I think Rashad White can kind of be thrown into that category. High level offense, 3-down skill set, just all he needs is one injury, and he's an every week RB2.
Okay, I buy that. Well, just like Kenneth Walker, he also comes from a pro system in Arizona State under Herm Edwards. So, yeah, I echo your sentiment. I like him. I think it's a good situation to potentially have as a stash on your bench in case something happens to Lenny. So we'll see. We are 45 minutes into the show right now, and we're only halfway through the running back. So let's get the ball rolling here so we don't bore too many people. We're going to move on to Tyrion David Price. He is running back out of LSU, drafted to the San Francisco 49ers. I'll let you talk about him first. What are your thoughts on him? Because I have my takes. I'll let you talk about him first. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think I spelled his Davis Price. I spelled it wrong.
Davis Price, yeah.
So my take on the 49ers, and this is actually not a Tyrion Davis Price take at all. My take on the 49ers is you just get their cheapest running back or one of their two cheapest running backs and just put them on your bench and cross your fingers, right?
Yep.
I think Elijah Mitchell is going to be their starter. I think he deserves it. I'm not drafting Elijah Mitchell because the 49ers have shown time and time again they revolve through running backs. So I'm just going to draft one of the later ones and just hope it happens. And that's about all the analysis I ever have.
Yeah, man. I like him. All I can say is Kyle Shanahan just knows how to make running backs just come out of nowhere. So even if Elijah Mitchell is doing well, if Tyrion Davis Price is doing well in practice, he could see touches. And he's one of those guys where if he's going to step on the field in a 49ers uniform, I think he's going to do well. Kyle Shanahan just knows how to design an offense around the running game. He just knows how to make running backs fantasy viable. I love Kyle Shanahan as a head coach. So I like him. He's a good bench stash. Like you said, I would rather draft him as a bench stash than trying to draft Elijah Mitchell as like your potential RB2 or flex player or whatever, wherever he's going at ADP wise. So I like that call. I definitely agree wholeheartedly with you when it comes to Tyrion Davis Price.
Yeah, Jake makes a good point in the comments. He said a lot of mouths to feed with Jeff Wilson, Trey Sermon, Elijah Mitchell, and TDP here. But yeah, that's a gamble you take, right? I mean, Jeff Wilson's pretty much proven he can't stay healthy. Trey Sermon barely even played last year.
Yeah, what happened to him? He sucks.
And Elijah Mitchell was like a 6th or 7th round draft pick. So we're acting like Elijah Mitchell is Christ. Tyrion Davis Price was a 3rd round draft pick. Elijah Mitchell was late. So yeah, and he couldn't stay healthy last year. So there's absolutely zero. You'll never convince me to take Elijah Mitchell at his price over Tyrion Davis Price at his price. That was a lot of prices. Let's move on.
Let's move on. All right. We're going to move on to Brian Robinson, running back from Alabama, drafted to the Washington Commanders. Washington's an interesting situation, man. They obviously have Antonio Gibson as their starter, but is Antonio Gibson that good? I'm not sure. We've seen situations where Antonio Gibson's been hurt. We've seen the situations where he's been awesome. I don't really know what to take from Antonio Gibson. I think Brian Robinson is going to be I understand J.D. McKissick is there, but J.D. McKissick is more of a pass catching back, a third down back, what he's always been in his career. So I think Brian Robinson's going to be fighting for that RB2 role behind Antonio Gibson with Jaret Patterson. So if Gibson doesn't play well or if he gets hurt, I think Brian Robinson could be thrust into a running back one role here and potentially a good play later in the season.
Yeah, man. I'll be honest. I struggle with a Brian Robinson take. I just don't know what to think of the guy. Part of it is because Gibson has just slowly fell down boards for months in a row now, especially since they drafted Brian Robinson. But I really like him. He played through an injury pretty much all year last year and still put up pretty good numbers. He used to be a wide receiver, so obviously he knows how to catch the ball. Brian Robinson, not that fleet of foot. I think he was a 4 or 5 year player at Alabama. Couldn't get his on the field until his super senior year. I don't know. I think Brian Robinson is going to have a role in the NFL. I think he's going to be, a great depth piece and a grinder. I don't know if I'm seeking him out in fantasy because of his lack of receiving ability, and I just don't think he has that role day one or even close to it. I think Gibson's still the guy, and we know McKissick is an elite pass catcher.
Yeah, Jake, I don't know about Jaret Patterson.
Yeah, he's going to get cut.
Yeah, he's going to be look out on the streets there because he's not.
Maybe he can be the Bills running back.
Yeah, maybe. Okay. Yeah, that's all the Brian Robinson takes I got. He's obviously coming from a great program in Alabama, and Alabama running backs have tended to do well recently in the NFL. So not a bad play if you think he's coming from a good program into a good spot. So we'll see how he goes. But like we said earlier, he's kind of a bench kind of stash, just to wait and see what happens with Antonio Gibson. So let's move on to one of my favorite running backs when it comes to fantasy this year. My man, Dameon Pierce, coming out of the University of Florida. And it's not because I think Dameon Pierce is the greatest running back in the world or anything like that. I just think his spot is amazing, especially for fantasy purposes. His competition in the backfield, we got Marlon Mack, who's like 47 years old, and Rex Burkhead, who's like 57 years old. So Dameon Pierce could potentially be starter day one. And we'll see what the Texans decide to do if they decided to ease him into the backfield. But I love him, man. I think he could be a viable flex play this year. Like, he maybe not early in the season, but like by weeks 3 or 4, I think he's going to be getting a lot of touches in this backfield, man.
Yeah, you can see, his NFL draft rank. He was a 7th running back drafted in the NFL draft, but he's being drafted RB4 overall in Dynasty right now. So that says a lot of what a lot of people think about him, right? And a lot of that has to do with the situation that he's in. Marlon Mack hasn't done anything since his Achilles injury. And then you have Burkhead, who he's got to be like, 32, 33 years old. Yeah. So like you said, opportunity is king. And I will say I'm a bit higher on Marlon Mack than most people are this year. He is 2 years removed from the Achilles tear, and he was a great prospect, back in the day. I think he's only 26, by the way. He's not ancient yet. And he said he
feels like he's ancient. I feel like he's been playing for years and he's gotten a lot of injuries. So I don't know.
Well, think about it. Jonathan Taylor got shoved into opportunity when Marlon Mack tore his Achilles. I think it was week 1 or week 2 of the NFL season 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So Marlon Mack was a starter back then. So I'm not saying he's amazing, but anyway, we'll talk about Dameon Pierce.
But I feel like for the Texans, like where they are as an organization right now, we know they're not going to win many games this year. That's a spot where they can just play the rookies. I mean, they have a lot of young guys on that team where just at every position, and it looks like they're going to hand the ball to Davis Mills, who we don't know how he is as a quarterback. They might rely on this run game a lot. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he's a 3-down. He's a 3-down back. He has great size, 5'10" to 220. He's a good pass catcher. He's an excellent pass protector. It was like basically what they used him for at Florida. He wasn't really the feature back at Florida. He didn't really play a ton and have a bunch of touches, but when he did get the ball, he was a producer. So I'm with you, man. I mean, I think a lot of people are thinking it's an absolute sure thing, like more of a sure thing than a 4th-round running back should be considered. But I do think he's a nice player and a good opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, I agree with Jake here. The Texans have a knack for selecting these late round backs and turning them into superstars. I totally agree. So we'll see. The Texans are a weird team. They could be one of those teams where they just like, they obviously suck in real life, but for fantasy purposes, they have some good pieces. I mean, Damian Pierce, Brandon Cooks, Nico Collins at wide receiver, like they have good pieces there where they're obviously going to be behind in a lot of games and could be trying to score points. So
yeah.
not?
Yeah, that hurts. You don't really want negative game scripts for your running backs.
Well, yeah, but
while you mentioned it, can you all just please draft Nico Collins this year? That's like I'm never gonna let it go. He's gonna be awesome this year.
I'm still a Brandon Cooks fan. He was so good.
Yeah, I mean, of course, Cooks is going to outscore him, but I think you just hate Michigan players that much.
Yeah, I do. If you name a Michigan player, I don't like him. Okay, moving on to the next running back we got here is Zamir White. Where did Zamir White go to college? He went to Georgia. Yeah.
Oh, no, Georgia. Sorry.
Georgia, yeah. Wrong Georgia. So he comes to the Las Vegas Raiders, where it's a pretty crowded backfield with Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake. And they even signed Brandon Bolden in the offseason. I don't really think Zamir White is too draftable unless there's injury issues. I think Josh Jacobs is the workhorse there. Josh McDaniels is the new head coach there, and I think he comes in with a plan to pass the ball to Devonta Adams and hand the ball off to Josh Jacobs. So barring any injuries, I don't think Zamir White is really draftable. What do you think?
Yeah, he's probably right on the borderline, but no, I'm not really about it. Just because, Jacobs has shown he's a 3-down back. I mean, I think he's one of the more underrated running backs in real life and in fantasy. Josh Jacobs is, and it's Kenyon Drake. I mean, he got a decent contract 2 years ago. I don't think they can cut him. If I remember correctly, he has like a 2-year, $18 million contract or something. Mm-hmm. So Kenyon Drake's going to see the field. Zamir White, nice little player, offers no upside with pass catching whatsoever. And if you're in a PPR league, he needs to be pretty much completely off your radar. But yeah, I like Zamir White a lot more in dynasty formats than season long because Josh Jacobs' 5th-year option was not picked up.
Yeah, that's very, very true. So I definitely like him for dynasty. Redraft for this year, probably not on my radar.
Correct.
All right, let's go on to the next guy here. We got Isaiah Spiller out of Texas A&M. He went to the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers have been looking and looking for a few years now to build depth behind Austin Eckler. And they failed with people like Joshua Kelly, Larry Roundtree. Who's the other guy they had? Josh Jackson. Justin Jackson. Yeah. So all these guys have failed. So they try again this year with Isaiah Spiller. He showed flashes in college, man. I think this guy could be really good. I like him in dynasty leagues. Eckler has a tendency to potentially, be a little injury prone, where Isaiah Spiller could be thrust into a dynamic offense. I like him. I like him as a flyer in late rounds. I think he's someone that you could stash and potentially get be viable later in the year.
I agree. Didn't really like him going into the draft. And, I think he was kind of an overrated college player. But I'll be damned if I can't just picture, being like week 14, 15, 16 or something in fantasy football and Eckler being out for 1 or 2 weeks and me being pumped up that I have Spiller on my bench. I literally can't unsee it. So, yeah, I mean, you want these elite handcuffs on your bench that are on great offenses, and if the lead back goes down, they're RB2 material. And like Tony Pollard, he's already shown he can be high-end RB1, like if Zeke goes down. So that's the kind of people you're searching for. We don't know if Spiller is that, but
from what you've seen in his college game and his pro tapes and stuff like that, like, do you think he's better than the other guys they have, Joshua Kelly and Larry Roundtree? Yeah.
Oh, for sure. I mean, Kelly and Roundtree both, I mean, they might be the only two players in the NFL that are slower than Isaiah Spiller. Yeah, he's for those that didn't keep up with the combine, Isaiah Spiller was a huge disappointment in his athletic testing. So that's the reason he fell all the way to the 4th round. There was talks at some time that he was one of the better running backs coming out of college this year, but he had absolutely putrid athletic testing. So I think he's kind of like just a guy in the NFL, but just a guy on the Chargers. If you're the number 2 running back, it might be really good.
It might be really good. All right, let's move on to our last running back that we're going to talk about today. Someone who I actually really like, Tyler Algier. He got drafted to the Falcons out of BYU. He comes into a spot where the Falcons, we don't really know what their backfield situation is. Obviously, they ran out Cordell Patterson last year. They found a way to use Patterson, who became a fantasy stud out of the running back position. Are they going to continue to do that this year? I'm not sure, really, especially with the Falcons' lack of wide receivers that they have. Besides, we'll get into Drake London in a minute, but Cordell Patterson could be thrust back into a wide receiver role on this team. And if that's the case, then we have Algier fighting for that RB1 role with Damian Williams. So what do you think, man? I think he has a spot to get some touches early this year.
Yeah, for sure. He was the 10th running back drafted, round 5. Not good for draft capital for a running back, but he's the dynasty running back 7 right now in drafts. So people are really, liking his opportunity as they should. And yeah, I mean, I think his weight is wrong on this card here because this guy is an absolute bowling ball. He's another converted linebacker at BYU, and he's freaking huge, and he runs pissed off. So, I mean, I think this is just one of those guys that could become a coach's favorite, team favorite. I believe he was team captain of BYU. So, I mean, I think he's one of the rookies that's going to have just as much, if not more, opportunity as your boy Dameon Pierce. So let me ask, if you can get Algier in a 2022 draft 3 rounds after Dameon Pierce, who would you rather have?
3 rounds? I would take Algier.
What about 1 round later?
Pierce.
Yeah, that's about right.
I think there's a little bit of a value gap there, but 3 rounds for sure. I would take Algier, and he comes into a spot where Arthur Smith is our head coach, and Arthur Smith knows how to. Similar to Kyle Shanahan, he knows what to do with running backs. He, obviously Derrick Henry was a stud in Tennessee, but he turned Cordell Patterson, who's a wide receiver, into what was he last year? He was an RB1, RB2, basically.
He was like a RB7 overall or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. That's crazy. So I like the system he's in. And if he gets touches, then he could be the next who's a famous Falcons big bowling ball kind of right? Like in the next Jamal Anderson, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, I was gonna say the guy that was on the who's the guy that was on the Ravens? He had long hair, dreads, and the Ravens got him last year.
I don't know,
but he was like a longtime Falcon.
Devontae Freeman.
Devontae Freeman, yeah.
Yeah. That's a good comparison. I think Algier is more of a kind of like a 3-down back than Devontae Freeman, but yeah, I mean, we'll see. Okay, we are done with the running backs finally. 1 hour into the show. Let's try to get through these wide receivers and tight ends over the course of the next half an hour. So let's move on to the number 1 wide receiver being taken in dynasty drafts, Drake London. We just talked about the Falcons with Tyler Algier. Let's talk about Drake London, who's getting thrust into a wide receiver 1 role in Atlanta because of the full season suspension for Calvin Ridley. Obviously, Calvin Ridley gambled on NFL and he got suspended for a whole year. So the Falcons used high draft capital, a top 10 pick on Drake London here out of USC. All signs point to him being a stud fantasy wide receiver, even with Marcus Mariota at quarterback. He's going to get a bulk share of routes run on this team. What do you think, man?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's the wide receiver too. I think Kyle Pitts is not tight end.
Yeah, that's true.
No, I absolutely love the talent. He's exactly what you want. If they have bad quarterbacks, I mean, you want that big, rangy, box out type of wide receiver. The guy, I believe, just turned 20 recently. He's a very young player. So he's going to have a learning curve. He's also coming off an injury. So I think there's a lot of ways that he's not going to be the rookie wide receiver one this year, just because he is coming off the injury. Atlanta is god awful. And I think there's a couple other wide receivers that are in much better positions to, they might not be like the guy on their team, but their teams are going to score so many more points that they'll score more points too. So absolutely love the talent. I'm infatuated with Drake London and Dynasty because he is so young. He is still untapped, in my opinion. And I think the Falcons will be picking top 3 in the draft last year, and they're going to get CJ Stroud or someone like that. So yeah, absolutely love him in Dynasty. Little lukewarm on him. I don't know if I want him yet in season long.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I like him. Season long this year. Possibly wide receiver 3 range. Is that what you're thinking?
He's going wide receiver 37 right now in season long.
So right there on wide receiver,
right there on the fringe. So so let's do a couple this or that. So would you rather have Tyler Lockett or Drake London?
I don't know, man. That's a tough question. Tyler Lockett probably, even with the quarterback situation in Seattle. I think Tyler Lockett will still be able to put up some numbers.
Juju or Drake London?
Ooh. I got to take Juju. I can't imagine not taking a Patrick Mahomes led team.
Okay.
Over Marcus Mariota.
Brandon Ayuk or Drake London?
There I would probably go Drake London, just because I don't really like the fantasy wide receiver situation in San Francisco with Trey Lance.
You guessed them all exactly by how ADP is, so you're with the consensus there.
Yeah, sounds about right. Okay. All right, let's move on to our next wide receiver here. Garrett Wilson out of the Ohio State University going to the New York Jets. He gets thrust into a pretty crowded wide receiver room here with Elijah Moore, Corey Davis, Braxton Berrios, to name some names here. I don't know, man. He was great in college. He gets thrust into a pretty stacked wide receiver room with a quarterback who I think is not that great. I don't really know how I feel about him, man. He's not really on my radar for redraft leagues. Maybe dynasty, yeah, but redraft. I know in our dynasty league I passed on him, so I don't know, man.
Yeah, I agree. It's a crowded room, not a good quarterback. A team that's going to want to run the ball with their brand new running back, Breece Hall. So I think it's scary to want to pass on him because out of all the guys in this draft, I think he has the ability to have that Justin Jefferson, just way better than everyone level breakout, because he is such an elite route runner. He makes absolutely acrobatic catches. I mean, the talent is undeniable. It's just, I think Elijah Moore is the guy there, man. I mean, he showed so many nice flashes last year. And also, like, the hate of Corey Davis has literally gone too far. I mean, the guy, I think he's a really solid receiver. So I don't know that Corey Davis is just going to sit the bench. He got a huge contract a couple years ago. But we'll see. I'm with you, man. I'm lukewarm on him. I'm not going out of my way to draft him, but if he slides down the board, I will. I'll probably try to grab a share or two.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let's go on to another Ohio State wide receiver here, and Chris Olave being drafted to the New Orleans Saints. This is going to be. Man, I'll tell you this much. The Saints might not be the greatest team in the world, but this offense is going to be pretty exciting to watch this year, especially with Jameis Winston, if he comes back healthy and is back to like old gunslinging Jameis Winston. They have a pretty crowded wide receiver room with Michael Thomas, and they signed Jarvis Landry in the offseason. So Chris Olave, I like him. He's probably one of my favorite wide receivers in this draft class. I was hoping that maybe the Ravens drafted him. I kind of really wanted him. I thought he was dynamic in college. I really like him. I like his fantasy prospects this year. He's going as a wide receiver 3 right now. I think he has potential wide receiver 2 upside, especially if Michael Thomas is not the old Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry is old. So who knows? Maybe he finds a connection with James Winston and lights it up.
Yeah, I think there's a decent path here, with Thomas's injuries and Landry being, 54, that Chris Olave could kind of lead that team in receiving. He's a polished player. He stayed all 4 years in Ohio State, I believe.
Yeah.
So that was, kind of a knock on him that he didn't declare early last year. So, he's ready to get right into it. And super polished player, like you mentioned, and he has a quarterback that wants to get it deep. And what do you know? He's a deep threat. So I think for my money, I think Chris Olave is going to lead rookie wide receivers in receiving yards this year.
I like it. I like that call. I think I agree with that. Okay, let's move on to our next man here, Jameson Williams out of Alabama, going to the Lions. If it wasn't for a knee injury in the national championship game, is that what it was, or maybe the semifinals? I can't remember. One of the two. Very late in the season, he tore his ACL.
I think national championship.
Yeah, so he is going to be most likely. I mean, his rehab, they're saying, is going pretty good, but he is most likely going to be missing a good portion of the beginning of the season. This guy, if he didn't get hurt, could have easily been the number 1 pick overall, possibly, or number 2 pick, top 5 pick. Who knows? The Lions gave up a lot of draft capital. They moved up like 20 spots or something to go get him.
Yeah.
He is a dynamic wide receiver, and I think when he comes back healthy, he has Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase upside, potentially, even with Jared Goff at quarterback. So I know they have a pretty dynamic wide receiver already in Amon-Ra St. Brown, but when he comes back, I think he's going to be thrust into that, wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 role on that team. And if the Lions get a quarterback next year as a Goff replacement, watch out, man. This offense could be dynamic.
Yeah, I like what the Lions are doing. It says a lot that they traded up, 20 some spots to draft a wide receiver. But that really speaks to what they thought of him. And you're right. I mean, I think he's the wide receiver 1 in this class, if he doesn't get injured. And I just like his skill set. I mean, when's the last time you saw a wide receiver that's 6'2" that moves like Tyreek Hill? I mean, he's literally, he has the mobility and the you can't catch me speed that Tyreek Hill does. He just comes with an extra 6 inches of height. So I can't wait to watch him. Obviously, much bigger into him in Dynasty than season long. I think he's I don't know, Rick. Are you trying to stash Jameson Williams and wait that 8 to 10 weeks or whatever it's going to take? Are you willing to sit that out?
I think that if your league allows you to stash him in the IR slot where it doesn't take up a roster spot, yes, I think it's worth it because he honestly could come out guns blazing when he comes back in between week 6 and week 10, and could potentially be a league winner, like a game. Like, who are you going to get in week 10 off the waiver wire wide receiver better than Jameson Williams? I don't think anybody, like, in that situation. So if it's a spot that you don't mind spending the draft capital and just eating it for, like we said, 6 to 10 weeks, I think I would. I'll take a shot on him, and in the hopes that, if you have a good team around him and you can take that hit for a little bit of time, it's a chance to thrust a possible wide receiver 1 into your lineup late in the season and win your league.
Yeah, I think you made a good point with the IR spots. If your league doesn't have IR spots, I don't want to waste 8 weeks of him on my bench when you could be adding other flyers or like running backs that could pop off because someone got hurt. I wanted all my bench spots. Me and you talk about it all the time. Your bench spots are just as valuable as your starters and what your strategy is with your bench. So if I can put him in IR, he's all mine. If I can't, I think I'm going to pass.
Okay. All right, let's move on to our next wide receiver here. We have a few more to get through. Jahan Dotson coming out of Penn State to the Washington Commanders. He gets into a situation where he's basically thrust into a wide receiver 2 role, I think, on this team with Terry McLaurin, and he could have a chance to line up across Terry McLaurin in week 1, man. This is a situation where the depth of wide receiver at Washington's not much. I don't think he has much competition here for wide receiver 2, maybe Curtis Samuel, but not much beyond that. Their depth beyond that is not good at all. Cam Sims, De'Ami Brown, Calvin Harmon, these are guys that I don't think can really compete with Jahan Dotson, who was a stud in college, to really compete for snaps for him. And I think he's going to be, if Carson Wentz can find a situation I think he's kind of going to be like a slot. I don't know if he's going to play out wide because he's a little short, but if he's a slot guy, maybe Carson Wentz can find him in the middle of the field, and he could be a good fantasy producer this year.
Yeah, it's wild to me that the 16th pick in the NFL draft overall is going as wide receiver 9 in Dynasty right now.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. I mean, it says a lot what people think about Carson Wentz, right? But yeah, I'm with you, man. He's an electric playmaker. He was absolutely, held together that Penn State team for a couple years there. And yeah, just love him. Super flashy player, makes a ton of crazy one-hand catches. I don't know. He reminds me of Stephon Diggs a little bit, just the way he moves and snatches the ball out of the air. And, so yeah, that's kind of my comp for him. And I think as late as he's going in drafts, I mean, I'm absolutely seeking him out in both redraft and dynasty.
Cool. All right. Let's move on. Let's keep the ball rolling here. We're going to go to Mr. Treylon Burks out of Arkansas, drafted to the Tennessee Titans after they traded away A.J. Brown on draft day. I need to plug in my laptop, so I'm going to let you talk about Treylon Burks. Go ahead.
Cool. Yeah, so Treylon Burks, I guess we'll call it like a little mini slide down the NFL draft board. He went 18th overall. But as you can see, a lot of dynasty players don't really believe in that. He was a wide receiver 6 taken overall in the NFL draft, but he's currently being drafted as a wide receiver 2 in dynasty football. So a lot of people still believe in his talent. Played at Arkansas, so he played in the SEC, absolutely dominated every year that he played for Arkansas, even against high-end competition like Alabama and LSU. So the guy's an absolute man. He's replacing A.J. Brown, and that's literally his comp. I mean, he plays just like A.J. Brown. So guy has elite skills after the catch, and I love his landing spot. I mean, I want Treylon Burks on every team if I can get it. Tannehill force-fed A.J. Brown. Now he's gone. Treylon Burks is his exact replacement. Robert Woods coming off an injury. So, also getting up there in age. Love Robert Woods. But, other than them two, Treylon Burks and Robert Woods, who's there to throw the ball to? Austin Hooper is their tight end. Other than that, no one really. We know they're going to run the ball with Henry all the time, but you're going to have to throw it too. Tannehill has shown he can be really efficient when he's on his game. So
you don't have any love for my man Nick Westbrook-Ikhine?
Nah, not at all. But yeah, I'm higher on Tannehill than most, so maybe that's why I'm a Treylon believer. But yeah, I think I'd say Treylon Burks and Chris Olave probably have two of the best situations to step in right now and make a huge difference from the first game.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think this is a good spot for Tennessee, even though they, like you said, they're going to run the ball a lot with Derrick Henry. Tannehill has shown tendencies to be able to, complete that play action passes to A.J. Brown and Julio Jones, I guess, when he was healthy down the field. So I think it's a good spot for him. I think he's going to be pretty fantasy viable this year. Mm-hmm. I would say possibly wide receiver 3 with potential wide receiver 2-1 upside this year. So if you're getting him as your wide receiver 3, I definitely don't hate it.
Yeah, I dig that too. I don't know if the volume will be there to really think he could, be like top 12 or something, but he's going to have some big games when they're running the ball well and can use that play action.
All right, let's go to a very, very interesting situation here with wide receiver Christian Watson coming out of, I believe, South Dakota State, North Dakota State, one of those two teams, to the Packers. After the Packers had traded away Devontae Adams, they go out and they get a wide receiver for Aaron Rodgers. And this wide receiver room in Green Bay is pretty bleak, man. They have Alan Lazard, Christian Watson, Sammy Watkins, Randall Cobb. So that is not some death row, murderer's row worth of wide receivers there. But they have the best quarterback in the NFL, if not like one of the best quarterbacks of all time. So we've seen Aaron Rodgers just be able to make wide receivers good, fantasy viable, and there's no Devontae Adams there anymore. Pretty damn good landing spot for a fantasy wide receiver. What do you think?
Yeah, Watson's being drafted above Jahan Dotson right now, so the landing spot means a lot. Yeah, so okay. Well, I want to do a this or that, and it's on the same team. Lazard or Watson for you?
I mean, if you're gonna ask me right now, it's gonna be Lazard. If you're gonna ask me like week 4, it's gonna be Watson.
Well, Rick, the championship game is after week 4, so
no, I mean, I think right now, I think it just purely like, just my gut feeling. I think I would take Watson over any of the wide receivers on that team.
Yeah, I guess it depends on your risk tolerance, right? So it's like Lazard is probably locked in as like a back end wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 type, but he's always going to have solid games, right? So, Aaron Rodgers is slightly a psychopath. So he might not end up liking Watson and might not trust him, right? So to me, Christian Watson is the biggest, highest, maybe not the highest ceiling, close to the highest ceiling, but damn near close to the lowest floor too. He's a raw receiver prospect, and he should get the opportunity, but Aaron Rodgers is going to write that starting lineup, right? So we'll see. I think this is the most important player to look at camp reports and watch preseason and listen to what the coaches say, because it's going to tell the whole story of where you should be drafting him.
Jake asks an interesting question. He says, do the Packers have 1,000-yard receiver this year?
Yeah, his name's Aaron Jones.
I'm gonna go with no. I don't think anyone was gonna get the volume to get to 1,000 yards on that team, but they're still the team to beat. They're still going to be able to spread the ball around and win games. So as long as you have Aaron Rodgers healthy on that team, I think they're all viable, but I think Christian Watson possibly has the best upside.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, is there any way Aaron Rodgers doesn't throw 35 touchdowns? Like, he's just going to, right?
Yeah, he's just going to fall into touchdowns every game.
Yeah. So I don't know. I even like a little Robert Tonyan bounce back action this year. I mean, someone's got to catch the touchdowns. He's not going to hand it off on the goal line all year long, or maybe he might. And AJ Dillon will just have like 15 touchdowns.
Yeah. All right, let's move on here. We got Wan'Dale Robinson drafted to the New York Giants out of Kentucky. This is nothing for me, man. Not on my radar. Can't stand him. Terrible team, terrible quarterback. Too crowded of a wide receiver room with Kenny Golladay, Kadarius Toney, Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton. Just a who's who of wide receivers here. Can he stand out amongst those guys? Maybe. But like I said, Daniel Jones sucks. Not on my fantasy radar this year.
Well, he's like the same size as James Cook, so maybe he can be Saquon Barkley's backup.
I guess.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, I'm with you. I kind of like the dynasty outlook, but this year I'm just off of him. Like you said, like I don't want the wide receiver 4 or gadget player for a bad offense with a bad quarterback. So, cool player, fun to watch. I just don't want him.
Okay, I think that's enough about Wan'Dale Robinson. Let's move on to John Mechie here. He is on the Texans, right? Is that right?
Yeah, he's out. He's out for the year.
He's out for the year. Okay, so he also got injured in the late in the season, right? Like
No, it's something medical. Hold on, I'll tell you in a second. He has like
oh, that's right. He has leukemia, right?
yeah.
Okay, yeah. So he's not going to play football this year. So yeah, don't draft him in redraft leagues. I don't know if he's even draftable now because of his health issues in dynasty leagues. So I don't really have a take on him.
Yeah, I don't, just best wishes to the guy. I don't really
Yeah.
want to talk about him.
Okay. All right, let's move on. Tyquan Thornton for the New England Patriots here. I don't know much about this guy. You're going to need to tell me about Tyquan Thornton.
That he was no clue how he went in the second round of the NFL draft. That was, I think, one of the more. The Patriots had two, like their first round pick and their second round pick. Like, I had no clue who those people were. But Tyquan Thornton was he was a combine darling. He ran a 4.28. Guy can absolutely fly. I mean, I don't even know who to comp him to. I guess think like Marquez Valdes-Scantling. So he's going to play a role in the NFL where he's like a field stretcher. I don't know that he's ever really going to have more than 40, 50 catches in a year. I just don't think that's going to be his game. But yeah, pretty much off my fantasy radar. I could be completely wrong, but sometimes players are just drafted early for certain reasons. Like, for example, it happened twice last year. Like the Rams drafted Tutu Atwell, who's like 5'6", 155 pounds. I'm assuming they eventually want him to be either kick returner, punt returner, and like deep threat gadget player. But and the same with Dwayne Eskridge on the Seahawks, just speedsters that serve a purpose but are not fantasy viable. So I think he falls into that bucket. As you can see, he was the 10th wide receiver drafted, but he's going wide receiver 16. So
and apparently he's Mike, our producer's cousin. So Mike Thornton's cousin, Tyquan Thornton. All right. Yeah, I don't really have much takes on him. I just read up on him a little bit. He went to Baylor, obviously in a tough spot where the Patriots. I mean, it's not like he's really competing against many guys here. I guess their wide receivers are like Devontae Parker and Jacoby Myers, so not too much competition here to get snaps. But a wide receiver on the Patriots, I don't really see it as being fantasy viable. So we'll move on from Tyquan to our next guy here, George Pickens, wide receiver out of Georgia, going to the Steelers. Love the wide receiver here. Don't really like the landing spot, even though the Steelers have a tendency to really coach up wide receivers and develop wide receivers well. But a tough quarterback situation, especially on a team where you already have Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool. I don't know how fantasy viable he's going to be this year, but I would have much preferred him to go to a better spot. But he could end up being a stud just because the Steelers are good at developing wide receivers.
yeah, that was my thought, is that their knack for creating awesome wide receivers can't be overlooked here. And if anyone knows who George Pickens is, I think he could use a little bit of help. The guy is like an absolute maniac on and off the field.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, you've never seen a player play with an edge like this guy does. He's like, I don't know, the Ray Lewis of wide receivers. I don't know how he doesn't run out of energy. Like, the guy literally like picks up cornerbacks and carries them off the field, body slams them on the bench. Anyway, big AFC North football guy, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I kind of like it, man, just because of the landing spot. And I don't think we really know who Chase Claypool is fully, right? He had an amazing year his rookie year, kind of regressed last year. So yeah, I mean, I think it's not a 0% chance that Pickens gets the number 2 wide receiver role there. I think he's a perfect outside receiver, 6'3", almost 200 pounds. And Claypool's more of, maybe that red zone threat. I don't really know. I think you want to draft players in kind of murky situations. And I would kind of say, with Juju being gone and Claypool unproven, that room is murky, the wide receiver room there. So yeah, that's where I stand on it.
Okay. All right, let's move on to our next wide receiver here. A guy who I really like this year, Alec Pierce. He is a wide receiver out of Cincinnati going to Indianapolis. He falls into a spot where I think he's going to be like the slot guy for them, potentially. But we're all expecting a breakout season, or another breakout season, I guess, for Michael Pittman here. I'm obviously not too keen on Matt Ryan as a quarterback, but I think he does bring some fantasy upside here. They're obviously going to run the ball with Jonathan Taylor. I like him, man. I think it's a good spot for him. I think he's going to be competing in that wide receiver 2 role. I mean, there's not really much there besides Michael Pittman. They got Paris Campbell, who's going to be competing with Alec Pierce here for the wide receiver 2 role. But I like him, man. I think he's going to potentially be that I don't know. I don't want to like the slot kind of guy that Matt Ryan could rely on, like he had with I don't want to say Russell Gage really last year, but maybe Russell Gage that he had in Atlanta. I don't know.
Yeah, this situation, and I know you like Alec Pierce, since Jake absolutely has boner for him. So I got to watch what I say. There's no argument that he stepped into, one of the higher depth chart roles out of everyone, because I think he's going to be their number 2 receiver. I'll just be honest. I think the opportunity is there. I just don't like him as a player. I think he like double catches the ball almost every time he catches it.
What does that mean? Double catches the ball?
Like, he goes up for it and it hits his hands, and then he catches it on his body, like as he's falling down or like going across the middle. Like he to me, he's not like a natural like finger catcher, like plucker of the ball. I don't know.
I feel like that can be coached up though.
Probably. And I just don't know if you can get away with it as much in the NFL.
Yeah.
But I don't know. See, when I watch like his highlights and his tape, I see that all the time. But then when you read a scouting report, it says he has really strong hands. So I don't know if that just means he's really good at like jump balls, but he is a huge receiver, and I like the comp to Jordy Nelson. I mean, I think he's going to be that, the vertical threat, speed guy, ran 4.4 40 on the outside. I think Jordy Nelson's a great comp there. So I don't know. Personally, I'm not in love with the guy, but it's hard to argue the situation. He's almost undoubtedly the wide receiver 2, because Paris Campbell can't stay healthy at all. So yeah, it's going to be a run first team, but I think he'll have a couple big games.
Okay, cool. All right, let's move on here. We're an hour and a half into the show. We have a few more slides to get to. Let's talk about my guy here, Sky Moore. I drafted him in our Dynasty League, I think number 7th overall. He's going into a great situation in Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback, a very weak wide receiver room led by Juju Smith-Schuster and Marquez Valdes-Scantling. I think that Sky Moore has the potential to be the Tyreek Hill replacement here. I think he has the potential to be the wide receiver 1 on this team. I don't know if he's going to do it right away. I love his dynasty prospects. Is he going to do it right away this year? I don't know. He was drafted in the 2nd round of the NFL draft for a reason. He wasn't a 1st-round pick, but I love the landing spot. I love the talent. I love the speed. I think this is a great spot for him. I think he's definitely fantasy viable this year. I just don't know at what spot he should go.
Yeah, man. This is a hard one to peg, right? Because he was the 13th wide receiver drafted in the NFL draft, but he's going right now dynasty wide receiver 6. Like you said, you took him 7th overall in the 1st round. So there's a big disconnect between how the NFL values him and then how we think he's going to do in fantasy. But you absolutely can't argue his opportunity. I mean, he has likely the best quarterback in the NFL throwing him the ball. And Juju Smith-Schuster, not high on him whatsoever. I mean, he's pretty much moved into just a slot guy. These days, Marquez Valdes-Scantling serves one specific role to stretch the defense deep. So I feel like Sky Moore fits in perfectly with this team. Yeah. Let's see who you would pick, this or that, with Sky Moore.
Sky Moore, the answer.
Yeah, always. No, I'm gonna make a couple of them hard for you. I can't find him on the sheet. Where is he at? Here he is. Okay. Sky Moore or Christian Watson?
Sky Moore.
Sky Moore or Elijah Moore?
Sky Moore.
Wow. Okay. I would definitely do Elijah Moore. Okay. All right. Sky Moore or Devontae Smith?
Sky Moore.
Wow. Rick is the biggest Sky Moore fan.
I'm a huge Sky Moore fan.
Sky Moore or Rashad Bateman?
That one's a little tough, being a Ravens homer, but yeah, I that's a coin flip for me, just because Rashad Bateman's our wide receiver one, and I think Lamar Jackson's gonna have a big year, so I would probably say Bateman there.
Okay. Sky Moore or Allen Robinson?
What team is Allen Robinson on again? I can't even remember.
Rams.
Oh, he's on the Rams. That's right. That's a tough one. I don't know. I really don't know that one.
So you're just the people that I was giving you to compare to Sky Moore were at least 15, 20 spots higher in wide receiver rank than him. So yeah, you're high on him. So
I'm very high on him.
So Rick, I'm donning right now. Rick is the Sky Moore homer of the channel.
Hey man, I was the Jamar Chase homer of the channel last year.
I'm not gonna lie, you smoked me on that one.
Sky Moore is the guy this year.
All right.
Yeah, let's go. I think he has a chance to be the number one rookie wide receiver this year. I think it'll be a competition between him, Burks, and London. Maybe Olave in there too. So we'll see. I just love the landing spot, and I love the opportunity for him. I think he's super fast. He's going to take the Tyreek Hill role, and Andy Reid's just going to know what to do with him. I think he's going to be great in the NFL.
I dig it.
All right, let's move on to Velus Jones, drafted to the Chicago Bears out of Tennessee. He comes into a team that has a pretty bad offense. Justin Fields, we're not really too sure about, but there is opportunity here. Not a threatening wide receiver room with Darnell Mooney and Brian Pringle as his competition. I don't really have a take on him. He's not really on my fantasy radar, but I could see him potentially. I think he goes as far as Justin Fields goes in the situation. So what do you think?
Yeah, I'm pretty much completely off him. 25-year-old rookie's not on my radar, especially on a horrible offense. So, yeah, he went in the third round, which I think shocked a lot of people. And it was because of that 40 time, right? We were talking about it with Tyquan Thornton earlier. When you run 4.3, teams are going to want you for certain reasons. So, might end up being a decent NFL player and teammate and serve a role. He's not on the fantasy radar at all.
Okay. All right. That's enough of Velus Jones. Let's move on to Jalen Tolbert. He is on the Dallas Cowboys, and he is out of, let's see here, South Alabama. So small school for Jalen Tolbert. The Cowboys lost Amari Cooper this offseason. They obviously still have CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup, who is hurt. Very high-powered offense. Dak Prescott, obviously a stud quarterback. I kind of dig him, man. I think he's a good little situation here for the Cowboys. They don't really have much depth behind them. James Washington went down in practice yesterday. I think he could potentially be out for the year. The other guys behind him are like Noah Brown and just names that are just not names. So if Michael Gallup's hurt or if he's going to miss some time, I think he could potentially line up across the way from CeeDee Lamb and be a wide receiver 2 on this team.
Yeah, to start the year, he almost definitely is. Yeah, so great situation for Jalen Tolbert. I think when we do a sleeper show closer to the year, I mean, I don't even know if he'll be a sleeper by then, right?
Yeah.
We'll see how he does in camp, but I think he's in that group of receivers that are unproven but have astronomical upside. So I would kind of pair him, with the Rondale Moore, Joshua Palmer on the Chargers, Nico Collins, like we talked about earlier on Houston. So those guys that are unproven, but, in good situations to step in high up in the depth chart and make an impact early in the year. So, yeah, I love his situation. And, I think he only went this late in the draft because he was from that really small school, South Alabama.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to move on to our last wide receiver here before we talk about a couple tight ends and wrap up the show. The last wide receiver we're going to talk about here is David Bell. He went to the Cleveland Browns and he was drafted out of Purdue. This is a very interesting situation. Obviously, we got news this week of Deshaun Watson being suspended for 6 games. So he will, of course, come back to face the Ravens in week 7, which is just great for the Ravens. Browns got Amari Cooper this offseason. Anyone who watches this show knows I hate Amari Cooper. Not any good. But they do have Deshaun Watson, who is a great quarterback. And I think that David Bell, even though he's a little banged up right now, I think he's good to go. He will be good to go for the season. I think this could be a spot for him to maybe take a flyer later in the season when they're not playing. Who's their quarterback now? What's the name of the guy from Indianapolis? Brissett. Yeah, Jacoby Brissett.
Mm-hmm.
When they transition from Brissett to Watson, I think he could be fantasy viable because Watson, we've seen Watson in Houston make wide receivers good around him with his talent. So who knows?
Yeah, I like David Bell. I loved him in college. The only reason he slipped this far in the draft because he ran a 4.65 40, but that's not his game. When we did the rookie show pre-draft, I comped him to Anquan Bolden, I believe. He's that over the middle bruiser, absolutely sticky hands. Now that the Watson suspension is only 6 games, I'm all over these Browns receivers, not named Cooper. I'm with you, man. I don't think I can click Amari Cooper's name to draft him. I don't think it's possible. So I probably won't have Amari Cooper. But it is tempting with Watson. But
there's always one Amari Cooper truther in every fantasy league who will overdraft Amari Cooper and just realize that he's not that good halfway through the season.
Yeah, so I think what I'm going to do instead of shooting for Cooper is get one of David Bell or Donovan Peoples-Jones to see, who will kind of profile into that wide receiver 2 role now that Landry's gone. So, yeah, I mean, I think between Bell or Peoples-Jones, one of them is going to have a great year. Hard to say which. I'm a big DPJ truther, so I'm probably going to roll towards him, but absolutely can't knock anyone for David Bell because when you have Watson throwing you the ball, you're going to score.
All right. Okay. Yeah, I agree with all that. So that's all the wide receivers that we have. We're going to run through just a couple quick tight ends here. Trey McBride going to the Arizona Cardinals. He was the number 1 tight end taken overall. In the draft this year, he goes into a spot where they have an old Zach Ertz, but a pretty dynamic offense with Kyler Murray. I don't really know how fantasy viable he's going to be this year, so I'll let you talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, the general rule is don't start rookie tight ends unless their name's Kyle Pitts, and even Kyle Pitts didn't really live up to where he was drafted last year, in my opinion. So I don't think he's draftable, but I think he's one of those players you keep an eye on. And if and when Ertz gets hurt, he hasn't always been the most reliable player, Zach Ertz. So I think McBride with an Ertz injury is very viable just because that offense is so good. And, DeAndre Hopkins is out. Marquise Brown, new to the team. Rondale Moore, unproven. Someone's got to catch the ball. So, don't draft him, but I think he's a name to keep starred and keep an eye on Zach Ertz because he gets banged up.
Okay. Next guy we have is Jelani Woods going to the Indianapolis Colts. I don't really know. What is the Indianapolis Colts tight end situation? They have Wally Cox, and that's it. So
Alan Branson, I think, is their other one.
Yeah, so pretty good spot, especially on a team where the team that we've seen in the past like to utilize the tight end. So what are your thoughts on Jelani Woods? Obviously, we've talked about why rookie tight ends are not always the greatest, but dynasty-wise, do you think he has a future in the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, I think for redraft, he's completely hands-off. I mean, even if Mo Alley Cox were to go down for the year. I don't even know if you can play Jelani Woods, not in his rookie year. But super cool prospect, 6'7", 260 pounds. He's absolutely mammoth. So yeah, probably just someone to keep an eye on and look out for in the future. But I think if he were to come as a top 20 tight end this year, finish as a top 20 tight end, I'd absolutely be shocked. So stay away from the rookies, but yeah, keep an eye on him for next year.
Okay. All right, the last guy that we're here, Mr. Irrelevant, in our podcast, Greg Dulcich. I think I pronounced that right. To the Denver Broncos. The Broncos lost Noah Fant. They traded him as part of the Russell Wilson trade, I believe. So their number one tight end right now is Albert O, who's a pretty good tight end. We've seen some flashes from him. The thing that I like about Dulcich here is that we've seen in Seattle, Russell Wilson knows how to utilize two tight end sets, and like he knows how to spread the ball around to two tight ends. And Albert O, we don't really know how good he is in the NFL, but he's clear cut the number one tight end on this team. But I could see this guy getting some run. We've seen some random tight ends in Seattle, Jacob Hollister and just random guys in Seattle like be fantasy viable because Russell Wilson really likes throwing to tight ends. And I think this guy, maybe not this year, but he could definitely see some snaps and see some fantasy production in the future.
Yeah, and some news today that happened that I don't know that it directly helps Greg Dulcich, but Tim Patrick's out for the year.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like Rick said, probably more two tight end sets. Their number 3 wide receiver went down. I mean, they have a decent wide receiver 4 in KJ Hamler. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But yeah, they must have really liked this guy. They got him in round 3, even after, they say that they really love Albert O. So they must really like this guy too. So if it was up to me, I don't think he's going to be their tight end 1 when the year starts, but another thing to monitor. I wouldn't be drafting him though. But Albert O, I think, is somewhere around that tight end 15 range, because when you're playing with Russell Wilson and you run a 4-4 like Albert O, out of the slot or from tight end position, probably gonna have some big plays in front of you.
Yeah. Okay, that is our last guy. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. We are an hour and 45 minutes into this, so if you stuck around with us for this long, I really appreciate it. Like we said at the top of the show, please like, comment, and subscribe to Nickel City Mafia. We're trying to grow this channel, hopefully to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. That would be awesome. We're at around 560 subscribers right now. Like we talked about at the top of the show, we have a giveaway for the Bills, 2 tickets to the Bills Titans Monday night game. Please, to get entered into that draw, please comment, like, and please subscribe to Nickel City Mafia and leave a comment in the comment section of this YouTube video. The giveaway is sponsored from our sponsor Auto. We ran a little commercial for them at the top of the broadcast, so please take a look at that and download their app. Chris, I had a really good time here talking about some fantasy rookies. We will have some more fantasy football shows leading into the season. And then, of course, we'll have our weekly shows once the season starts. So we'll be doing, like a sleepers show, a mock draft show, just an overall prep for your fantasy draft show. And fantasy drafts are right around the corner. And if they haven't already started for you, they're closer to the end of the month, closer to the season. I'm excited, man. It's fantasy football season, and we're ready to go.
Yeah, man. They're pretty much all fantasy drafts are going to be in the next 4 or 5 weeks. So it's go time, baby.
Yeah, let's go. And buddy, I will see you next week in Ireland. Yeah, we're going on Chris's bachelor party to Ireland next week. It is going to be a blast. I'm excited. But yeah, we will be partying overseas next week. So no football show next week, but when we get back, we'll do something, and we'll do some more content for you guys. Any words, Chris? Yep.
See y'all later. Thank you for watching.
Guys. Yep. Take it easy and have a good night.